Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our Early Childhood Provider Updates webinar. Today is February 4th, and the time is now 1:04, so we will hop right in now that everyone's had a chance to sign in and get connected. Want to welcome you all to today's update, and also welcome you all to please input any questions that you might have throughout today's webinar in the Zoom chat. We will be taking some pauses and some time at the end of today's webinar to answer any questions that anyone puts into the chat. So we welcome you to do that throughout. So today we have a brief agenda. We want to, of course, update you, remind you about some resources that we have for early childhood, as well as provide some updates for providers around the federal stimulus funding for childcare, the COVID-19 vaccine, and some upcoming guidance on grant and loan programs, as well as child care program updates and some relevant teaching and learning updates. So just a reminder about our COVID-19 resources. You can find all of these on our Ldoe COVID-19 landing page and library. Our Strong Start 2020 landing page and library. We do have that dynamic COVID-19 FAQ document for early childhood that we continuously update. As we get questions, we answer them there on that FAQ document linked in this slide. We also have our Office of Public Health Guidelines for childcare, and just a reminder, the best email contact for anything COVID related is Ldoe COVID-19 support at la.gov. So just some COVID-19 related updates. The first is around the federal stimulus dollars. And Louisiana was recently updated that we will receive $198 million to support childcare as the field begins to recover from the impacts of the pandemic. And so the department plans include soliciting data from the field and providing direct support. So we have developed a survey for providers so that you all can offer your feedback and input on how the funding should be spent. So we're really looking forward to the data collected by this survey that helps to yield some direction for where this funding should be allocated. The Federal Consolidations Appropriations Act stimulates that states must use this funding to support all child care provider types, including type 1 and type 2 centers. So we are working with the governor's office currently to allow for this. The department's preliminary plan is to use the large majority of the grant award to fund direct financial supports for child care providers. And please, we ask you to stay tuned to the Early Childhood Connection newsletter for more information on the new federal stimulus dollars. LDH has been working closely with the public and private sector in making vaccines available at locations for prioritized groups in both urban and rural communities within the state. So we've been in contact with LDH around vaccines for early childhood providers. And all home and center-based childcare providers, Head Start, early Head Start providers, and preschool are all included in Phase 1B, Tier 2 of the vaccine priority plan. Support staff, including custodial, transportation, kitchen, and other staff, are all eligible for the vaccine under that priority group. Vaccine distribution is occurring at the local level, so it does vary from one area to the next. And LDH has published a list of vaccination sites. We will continue to update you all as the state moves through the vaccine distribution plan in the upcoming months. To learn more about how Louisiana families with children under the age of 5 have been impacted by and managed during the pandemic, the Louisiana Policy Institute with partners conducted a survey of Louisiana parents and guardians this past fall. You see here we have links to the full report, the report summary, and the virtual press conference recording. And this is just a great resource to look at the data that the Louisiana Policy Institute has compiled based on this past fall's survey. So this next slide outlines 2 different recovery grant and loan programs. And there are 2 opportunities that we want to bring your attention to today. The first of which is the Economic Injury Disaster Loans, which provides fixed interest loans to small businesses intended to cover 6 months of operating capital. The other of which is the Payroll Protection Program, which provides forgivable loans to small businesses to cover 2.5 times your average monthly payroll. So we wanted to call your attention to these 2 different funding opportunities. The Economic Injury Disaster Loans is a long-term direct loan program designed to provide economic relief to businesses that are currently experiencing a temporary loss of revenue. They provide up to 6 months of working capital to cover a wide array of working capital needs and normal operating expenses. Eligibility or acceptance is dependent upon credit history, repayment ability, collateral, and the SBA will require applicants to pledge what is available, but will not decline a loan for lack of collateral. And so you can find more information and submit applications online through the SBA, which is linked here on this slide. The second opportunity we wanted to bring to your attention is the Payroll Protection Program, a federally funded forgivable loan program administered by banks. This is designed to help small businesses maintain their payroll. Businesses will be eligible for loan forgiveness if at least 60% of the funding they receive is used to cover eligible payroll costs, and 40% or less is used to cover other eligible business expenses. The application period opened on January 19th and will close on March 31st. Since there is limited funding, it's crucial to submit applications early. Learn as much as you can about each opportunity. First Children's Finance led a recorded webinar that we have linked here on this slide that provides more details on payroll protection program and the economic injury disaster loans. We really want to encourage everyone to really research, use this webinar to provide the information that you need to make some decisions around next steps regarding both of these opportunities. Some other recommended practices would be to only apply once, monitor your email, voicemail, and physical mail, be responsive once you have applied for either one of these. Be your own advocate, call and email your loan lender until you receive confirmation. And if you received a state grant that was designed to cover operating costs, talk with the administering agency in your state about how that state grant will interact with these loans, and prepare copies of all materials so that items can be easily resubmitted should anything be lost. A refundable payroll tax credit has been extended into the first 2 quarters of 2021. Business owners may be eligible for a payroll tax credit effective January 1st, 2021, based on several factors. Business operations were either fully or partially suspended by a COVID-19 lockdown order, or the business owner had a significant decline in gross receipts beginning in 2020. Small businesses can retroactively apply for the ERTC if they took advantage of PPP. However, a credit may not be claimed for wages paid with the proceeds of a PPP loan that have been forgiven. Look for additional guidance from the Internal Revenue Service and your accountant to determine if you may be eligible. We have a few child care program updates to share with you all today. The department will extend Ccap payments to providers based on enrollment through December 31st, 2021. So we are really pleased that we are able to announce this today, that we will be able to continue paying based on enrollment through December 31st of this year. While Ccap has extended payments based on enrollment, providers are still required to use either the tracking of time services, your TOPS, point of service device, or interactive voice response system to track attendance. So we still need attendance tracked, even though those Ccap payments will be based on enrollment until the end of the year. A reminder that failure to do so may jeopardize provider payments based on enrollment. If future grants are available, providers failing to use TOPS or IVR will not be considered for the grants. it is crucial for our own federal reporting purposes that we have attendance tracked to be able to show the number of students attending. And so we really encourage you all to pay special attention to tracking your attendance, despite Ccap still being paid on enrollment until the end of the year. Bessie has approved some changes to the Child Care Assistance Program that will increase the benefits of serving Ccap families. So at this last Bessie meeting, we saw these different policy changes approved, the first of which is a Ccap rate increase. Ccap reimbursement rates were increased to a higher level than ever before, a rate equal to 75% of providers across Louisiana. Another policy change was payments to providers at the state maximum rate. If the provider's daily rate is lower than the newly increased state maximum rate, providers will now be reimbursed at the higher state rate. The third change is an update to Ccap income eligibility. Income eligibility was increased to approximately 200% of the federal poverty level, or $43,440 for a family of 3, allowing families to now make more income and still qualify for Ccap. And this is just a table comparing the old rates to the new rates that were recently approved at the last Bessie meeting in policy. So you can see there are some significant jumps from the old rates to the new rates for all different age groups and provider types. And you see again, this table displays students with special needs. And once again, you see some significant increase between the new rate and the old rate for those Ccap payments. New Ccap rates will be reflected in the payment issued during the week of February 15th. The state max reflects the maximum daily rate at which the Louisiana Department of Education will reimburse providers. If you have any questions about these changes to Ccap, please contact the Provider Help Desk or the Child Care Assistance Help Desk, and those two numbers are listed on your screen. I know our amazing Ccap team is standing by, waiting to help anyone who has questions about these changes and the impacts that you all will see in your issued payments. A few more updates. One around the Ccap grant recipients. As indicated in the assurance statements in the Ccap grants, the department will conduct random audits in this upcoming year of grant recipients. So just to let you all know that that is to come. That is something that we have to do as part of our federal requirements. We do have to do some auditing of those Ccap grants that have been issued. Also, for Ccap providers, in the months ahead, the department will conduct an underutilization process where we reach out to families who are not using Ccap regularly, as indicated by the TOTS IVR system. If those families do not need care, they will be removed as an eligible Ccap family. The department will keep providers close regarding this timeline and will ask you all for help in reaching out to these families. Some licensing updates. I've had some updates to the minimum clock hours. The Bessie approved waiver issued July 2020 for Bulletin 137 requirements will expire on February 28, 2021. Therefore, effective March 1st, 2021, the department will require early learning centers to obtain a minimum of 12 clock hours of continuing education per center anniversary year. As a reminder, all training shall be conducted by trainers approved by the department. And an upcoming training opportunity, the Child Care Criminal Background Check trainings will be held this winter and spring. This training is for providers and center staff who are new or need a refresher on licensing regulations and CCCBC requirements. Attendees will receive 2 continuing education hours for attending this training opportunity. The February 23rd training has been filled to capacity, but we will soon be releasing a March date and time. So please stay tuned to our Early Childhood Connection newsletter because we will soon be releasing the date and time for the upcoming March training as well. Prior to sending a potential staff to obtain fingerprints, center staff should keep in mind the following as it relates to child care criminal background checks. Some fingerprint locations may close unexpectedly due to COVID exposure. It is always best to call the nearest location in advance to ensure that that location is open. We know we're seeing some openings and closures from day to day. If the location is closed, use the fingerprint location list that's linked here on this slide to find the nearest alternative location. And just a reminder that department fees will continue to be waived through June 30th, 2021 for child care criminal background checks. We also have a few teaching and learning updates this afternoon. So we are inviting stakeholders to join in a review of our state's early learning and development standards. These standards are intended to help early childhood educators and families across the state deepen their understanding of how our children grow and develop in order to best prepare them for kindergarten and life beyond. The department has recently opened an application to participate in the Standards Review Committee. So we are inviting all interested early childhood educators, leaders, experts, families, and community members to apply. The application is linked here in this slide, and the deadline is February 12th. If you all have any questions, you can feel free to contact leslie.doyle@la.gov for anything related to our early learning and development standards review process. And this, I believe, is our last slide for today. So wanted to share once again the contact information. This is the best way to reach each one of the early childhood departments. So for your particular needs, you can see licensing, Ccap, the provider certification, criminal background checks, and then for general early childhood support, you always can reach out to earlychildhood@la.gov. We will take a brief pause and take a look at the questions that have come in today during today's webinar, and then we will take an opportunity to answer some of the questions. In the meantime, if any of you have additional questions, please feel free to put them in the chat at this time. Thanks everyone for hanging on while we took a look at some of the questions coming in. You can feel free to keep plugging in some questions as you have them. We are receiving quite a few questions around Ccap grants, if you all can anticipate more Ccap grants in the time to come. You know that an earlier slide talked about the new federal stimulus money. And so please know that we are still finalizing the plans for how those federal dollars will be spent based on incoming information from the federal government. But we did drop a link in the chat for a survey for you all to provide input on how that stimulus funding is spent. So please feel free to click on that link and answer the survey and give input. There are some questions around there related to how you all would like to see the money spent. One item in there is the potential for more stabilization grants. And so just to let you all know, we do anticipate more stabilization grants like the 4 Ccap grants that were awarded this past year in the months to come. So just to let you all know, we're still finalizing those plans for federal dollars, but know that we are looking for some of that money to be spent on stabilization grants. Another question is, when will parents be allowed to return into child care centers? So we continuously work with LDH, and we will work with LDH once again and talk with them some about any leniency with regards to parents. As of now, parents are not allowed in child care centers, but we will again return to LDH to see if there could be any leniency shown. And if LDH would agree, then we could update the OPH guidelines if allowed. Another question was around paying on maximum rates. Is everyone receiving the max rates until December 31st? And the answer there is, we are in the process of asking Bessie for an extension. We will keep you informed if this will indeed be extended to pay on the max rate. We're also getting some questions about the vaccine. And we know that all childcare workers are in that 1B phase 2 of the vaccine prioritization plan for the state of Louisiana. LDH has not yet communicated a date for this release. I know this is very dependent on the influx of vaccines that we see for our state. And we're sort of seeing different things across different areas and different regions of the state, but the timeline for the vaccine is highly dependent on how many vaccines we receive as a state, which unfortunately we currently don't have information on. But LDH has told us that they will make an announcement when the vaccine becomes available to that Tier 1B Phase 2 group that all child care center workers are included in. So of course, we will in turn make an announcement as soon as that vaccine is available for the group. Another question that came in was around after-school care payments. So our after-school care payments increased, and all payments are increased to the max rate per age of the child, while Ccap is paying on enrollment. Also just want to flag for everyone that there was, I believe, an error in the presentation around the licensing CCCBC training. It is on February 25th. I think the 23rd was an error in the presentation. So the date is the 25th for that training. I know we're also hearing some questions around the health and safety classes and how to sign up and how to locate opportunities for health and safety classes. So if you need assistance finding health and safety training opportunities, your best contact would be your local child care resource and referral agency so that you can view their calendar of training opportunities. Again, I know people have some questions around the continuing education hours. and some clarity needed there. We had a question, does that mean that the 12 hours were waived completely, or does it mean we have through the end of February to get those hours completed based on the anniversary date? And so some clarity to provide there is that providers whose license expires starting in March and going forward are required to have the 12 continuing education hours. So if you are a provider whose license is expiring starting in March, and then in any of the months following March, you all are required to have the 12 continuing education hours. We had a question come in about ancillary certificates and how to have a teacher ancillary certified. And so we will drop that in the chat, but the email address for that is Michelle Demolinaire at la.gov. So we'll drop that email address in the chat. We've also had some questions come in about any, some folks may be seeing an error in their Ccap bonus payment. And so, yes, 2-star centers did not receive their last 2% bonus payment. We are aware of this. This only applies to our 2-star centers. We are working with our programmers to have this payment issued as soon as we can. We thank you for your patience with that programming glitch. And so this only applies to 2-star centers, but we are aware that they did not receive their last 2% bonus payment. And so we are working with the programmers to get those payments issued as soon as possible. All right, we will take another pause and check and see if we have any more questions coming in. If you all still have any lingering questions, we invite you to enter them into the chat. And I will take a look and we'll see if we have any more questions coming in that we can answer. So we'll take another brief pause. All righty, y'all, we will hop back in with the next wave of questions. And so one question that came in is, can staff retake the Udemy trainings offered on the state website each year? Yes, but please note that these can only be taken once a year. So they can retake the Udemy trainings offered on the state website, but only once a year. We had another question about the clock hours. And so one specific question was, do employees have to go back and make up any clock hours that were not done for the previous year since they were waived? And the answer is no. Employees indeed do not need to go back and make up any of those clock hours from the previous year. And just another note is that the required LDH health and safety training do not count toward continuing education hours. So those LDH health and safety trainings do not count toward continuing education hours. So another question is there a way that we can keep up with parents that are doing the call-in method of attendance since we get paid on enrollment? I don't want to find out later on the back end that they have not been recording their attendance. And so the answer here is to please check your TOTS portal to view the daily scans. That'll give you a look at what parents are calling in. If assistance is needed for accessing the TOTS portal, you can contact the provider help desk at the number on your screen, or you can email jackie.drotty2@la.gov. And that's jackie.drotty2@la.gov. We'll go ahead and pop that email address in the chat for you all to see. The next question is about LA4 programs. Are the LA4 program monthly reimbursements still by allocation, or has this transitioned back to being funded by attendance requirements again? And so starting in January, LA4 monthly program reimbursements will be based on the actual number of eligible children who are enrolled and reported on your monthly enrollment report. They will no longer be based on allocation as they were in fall 2020. For more information on LA4 reimbursements, you can go ahead and email lindsay.bradford@la.gov. The next question is about Ccap rates. Do we get the new rates for Ccap on the 1st or the 15th of this month? And so the rates were effective on February 1st, meaning that you will see the new rate in your payment on the 15th of this month. So the rates were effective. The new Ccap rates were effective starting February 1st. So on your February 15th payment, you will see that new rate reflected. We had a few questions about parents and eligibility for Ccap. One is, if a parent lost a job and her child didn't renew, she lost childcare due to not having a job. How do they apply for childcare without a job? The regular Ccap application says that you must be working, but this parent is currently looking for work. So just wanted to point out here that there's a new program called ASE, Actively Seeking Employment. Clients can apply and check ASE on the Ccap application to qualify for 90 days while sending in all other verifications for eligibility. So just want to note here, if you have some families who are actively seeking employment through that new ASE program, they can still apply and check ASE on the Ccap application and be qualified for 90 days while they are working to send in all their other verifications for eligibility. Another question about family eligibility and redeterminations. Most of my parents are unemployed. Will redeterminations be required? Yes, parents whose certifications will expire soon must complete a redetermination application along with checking looking for work on the application. Parents will have to register with the Louisiana Workforce Commission and will be eligible for 90 days of service from child care assistance while looking for work or entering an educational program. So this is for parents who are unemployed and up for redetermination. They need to check looking for work on the application, and they will have to register with the Louisiana Workforce Commission, but they still will be eligible for 90 days of child care assistance while they are looking for work or entering an educational program. We had a question about the star rating tax document and when those will be received. The tax letter for providers will be issued March 1st. This letter reflects the average number of Ccap children and a dollar amount. If you need the documentation on your star rating sooner than that, you can email a request to earlychildhood@la.gov. But if not, that tax letter will be issued on March 1st. But if you do need it ahead of that timeline, go ahead and email a request to earlychildhood@la.gov. We had another question regarding ECACs. Is there a list showing which teachers have their ECAC? You can go ahead and utilize the teachlouisiana.net website, and that will allow you to enter a teacher's first and last name and see their ECAC. So you can enter a teacher's first and last name on teachlouisiana.net, and it will show you if they hold that ECAC. Will foster children be receiving the increase like Ccap children? Yes, payments for foster children will be the same as Ccap based on the age of the child. I had another question about 16-year-olds in the ratio to assist as a supervising teacher. We are in the process of asking Bessie for an extension, and we will keep you informed if this is able to be extended. And a question about copays. Will parents not have a copay anymore since the rates are more than we charge? That depends on the price charged by the provider and what the gap may be. If the amount the state pays is higher than what the center charges, then there would not be a gap to charge the family. So will parents not have a copay? That will depend on what the center is charging as to if there would be a gap or not. We had a question about your 1099. Do the 1099s we receive from Ldoe include the grants we received, or should we receive a separate 1099 for the grants? Yes, the 1099 that you received does contain the Ccap grant funding received. So that is included on the regular 1099. And then someone said that they got a message asking for payment for the Udemy training, and they were confused because they thought that they were free. The Udemy trainings on the Bulletin 137 modules are free. So after completion of the modules, you can email LDE licensing at la.gov for a certificate and for any questions about payments for the Udemy training. But the ones on the Bulletin 137 modules are free. We had another question about the before and after care Ccap payments, and the before and after care payments have adjusted along with the daily rates for Ccap. So they are not staying the same. They have adjusted along with the daily rates for the Ccap payments. All right, well, we thank you all for joining us today. That concludes the questions that we've had come in. And so just a reminder about those different places where you can reach out to the individual teams for any questions that you might have. And thank you all once again for all that you do, and hope that everyone has a terrific rest of their day. And we will see you back here on our next update. Thank y'all. Have a great afternoon.